My parents sold my childhood home to fund my sister's vacation, so I walked away and let them deal with the consequences. Alone, I'm a 27-year-old guy. And my childhood home wasn't just a house, it was my entire identity. It sat on the edge of a sleepy suburb, an old, creaky two-story with chipped paint, mismatched curtains, and a front porch that groaned every time someone stepped on it. But to me, it was sacred. Every crack in the wall, every uneven floorboard had a story. I learned to ride my bike in that driveway. Built a treehouse with my dad in the backyard oak. I kissed my first girlfriend under the porch light on a summer night. That house held every version of me. I was the oldest, and in a way that made me invisible. My parents leaned on me early chores, helping in the kitchen, babysitting Lindsay while they worked late. I never complained. I thought that's what being a family meant. Meanwhile, Lindsay floated through childhood with no expectations. If I got A's, I was told to aim higher. If she passed a class, they threw a party. She got a brand new phone at 13. I saved up 2 years for my first used one. Still, I didn't resent her back then. I thought maybe that's just how families worked. Some kids need more attention, and others are strong enough to handle themselves. But over time, the imbalance started to sting. Especially when my parents praised her for things I'd done years earlier without acknowledgement. She'd throw tantrums and get what she wanted. I'd stay quiet and be told I was mature for my age. That house was the one place I could breathe. Even when things felt unfair, I'd sit on the old staircase, run my hand along the wooden banister, and feel ... grounded. Safe if I had known what they were planning. I would have held on tighter to the walls that raised me. Lindsay was always the golden child, and I learned early that fairness didn't live in our house. She had this uncanny ability to twist every situation to her advantage. If I pointed out something she did wrong, I was overreacting or trying to stir up drama. If she failed a test, it was the teacher's fault. If I got a B, I was slipping. My parents never said it outright, but their actions screamed Lindsay mattered more. And the more I saw it, the quieter I became. When I was 16, I spent the summer mowing lawns to save up for a second-hand laptop. The day I brought it home, proud and sunburnt, Lindsay threw a tantrum because hers had a cracked screen, and my parents bought her a brand new MacBook the next day. They told me it was because she needed it more for school. I didn't argue. I just nodded and returned to my room, where my ceiling fan clinked softly in rhythm with the ache in my chest by the time I graduated high school. I had stopped expecting praise. I got a scholarship, moved out, and never asked them for a dime. Meanwhile, Lindsay switched majors 4 times, failed half her classes, and somehow ended up with a semester abroad, fully paid by our parents. I convinced myself that maybe, just maybe, they loved us equally, they just showed it differently. But that illusion shattered every time I came home. My old room was crammed with storage boxes. Lindsay's was untouched, pristine, as if she still lived there full-time. They framed her travel photos in the hallway. My college degree sat buried in a stack of junk mail. Still, I never questioned the house. The house loved me. It didn't choose favorites, but I was wrong. Everything, even the house, was just waiting to be given to her. It happened over Sunday dinner roast chicken, mashed potatoes, and betrayal. I'd driven in for the weekend, something I hadn't done in a while. Life was busy work, rent, bills, but I missed the house. Missed the way the front door stuck a little in the winter. The way the kitchen smelled like spices from my mom's old recipes. For a moment, everything felt like it used to. Then my dad cleared his throat. "We're selling the house," he said casually, as if announcing we were out of milk. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. "What do you mean, selling it?" Mom chimed in, reaching for the gravy boat like it was no big deal. "We've been talking about downsizing for a while. It's just too much space now that you're both grown." Too much space. This house had been in our family for 3 generations. My grandparents built it. My father was born in it. I spent my entire childhood filling its walls with memories. "Since when?" I asked. "Oh, just recently," Dad said, waving it off. "The market's good right now. It's the smart thing to do." Lindsay didn't say a word, just kept sipping her wine, eyes gleaming like she was in on something the rest of us weren't. I pushed my plate away, appetite gone. Why wasn't I told? Mom looked genuinely confused. "Told what? We didn't think you'd care that much. You don't even live here anymore." That hit like a punch. As if moving out to survive meant I gave up my right to care. I looked around at the chipped paint I used to help Dad touch up every summer. The worn carpet we used to race Hot Wheels and felt like a stranger in my own story. And deep down, I knew this wasn't just about downsizing. There was something they weren't telling me. It didn't take long for the truth to slip. Just one careless conversation overheard through a half-closed door. I couldn't sleep that night. My chest was tight, mind racing, thoughts tangled in a mix of confusion and dread. I went downstairs for water, and as I passed by the den, I heard Mom's voice, quiet, nervous. "I just hope he doesn't find out we're using part of the money for Lindsay's trip." Lindsay's voice floated back, breezy. "Relax. He never asks about money. He'll be too busy sulking about the house." The blood drained from my face. I stood frozen in the hallway, glass trembling in my hand. So that was it. They weren't selling the house to downsize or retire. Early, they were cashing in years of family history, so Lindsay could post filtered photos from Santorini and sipped cocktails in Paris. My childhood memories, my roots were reduced to an all-expenses-paid vacation for someone who never even appreciated the walls around her. I didn't go in, didn't say a word. I just stood there in the dark, listening to my mother laugh and tell Lindsay not to worry, that I'd get over it eventually, like I was a child mourning a broken toy. The betrayal wasn't even just about the money. It was the ease with which they traded my entire sense of home for her temporary thrill, the way they justified it to themselves like it was harmless, like I wouldn't notice. The next morning, I didn't speak during breakfast. Dad asked if I was okay, nodded. Lindsay acted like nothing happened. Already scrolling through travel vlogs and hotel reviews on her phone, I felt like I was watching my family from outside. A glass wall, still there, but no longer one of them. And the worst part, they didn't even think they did anything wrong. I left that Sunday. Without saying goodbye, there was nothing left to Sanat when I knew the truth, and they continued to act like everything was normal. My mom texted later that night with a heart emoji and a "love you, sweetie," as if she hadn't just ripped my foundation out from under me. I stared at the message for a long time before deleting it. After that, I started pulling away. I stopped answering phone calls. Group chats went silent from my end. At work, I buried myself in projects, stayed late, filled my evenings with noise so I wouldn't have to think. But every time I passed a street that looked remotely like home, I felt my throat tighten. I couldn't go back to that house, not while it was still standing and no longer mine. Lindsay, of course, was living her best life. Her social media became a travel diary over night sunsets in Italy, wine tastings in France, luxury spas with captions like #blessed. My parents commented under every post with hearts and fire emojis, proud like she'd cured cancer. Not one mention of where the money came from. And me, I was quietly grieving, not just the house, but the people I used to call family, the ones who didn't even think twice about cutting away a piece of me. A month later, I got a call from my dad. He left a voicemail, cheerful, upbeat, like nothing had changed. "Hey, buddy, just letting you know, we finalized the sale this week. It's a great deal, really worked out. Lindsay's trip is all squared away. Hope you're doing well." I replayed it twice. Not once did he say he was sorry. Not once did he ask how I felt. That night, I poured myself a drink, sat alone in my apartment, and made a quiet promise: if they didn't care about losing me, I wouldn't make it my job to stay. 2 weeks later, while cleaning out a box of old files from my closet, I found something that stopped me cold. It was an envelope yellow, tucked between college notebooks and dusty tax returns. My grandfather's handwriting stretched across the front, to be opened if anything happens to the house. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a copy of the will. My grandparents had left the house jointly to my father and me, not Lindsay, not my mother, me. I read it again. It was clear, dated, notarized. I was legally a My dad must have known. There's no way a sale like that would go through without skimming the deed. He'd just signed anyway. I felt my stomach churn. They didn't just betray me emotionally, they did it legally, quietly, willfully, and for what? So my sister could take a month-long vacation she'd forget about by Christmas. I called a lawyer friend from college the next morning. He was blunt. They can't sell without your consent if your name's on the deed. Unless they forged something, This isn't just shady, it's criminal. I couldn't breathe. I remembered my mom saying, "We didn't think you'd care." I remembered Lindsay grinning at dinner. And now I knew why they never asked me. They didn't want to give me the chance to say no. I drove to their place the next evening, parked across the street, engine off. Lights on in the windows, laughter inside. Probably another celebration over the sale. But I didn't go in. I just sat there because now it wasn't just about hurt feelings or unfair treatment. It was about stolen trust, stolen rights. A violation buried beneath fake smiles and passive-aggressive guilt trips. And I knew right then Nye wasn't done with this, not even close. The moment they realized I knew, the shift was instant. I didn't even confront them directly. I had my lawyer send a formal inquiry to the title company involved in the sale, CCing the buyers, the real estate agent, and both of my parents. The email included a scan of the will. Nothing aggressive, just questions, legal questions, the kind that make liars sweat. My phone rang nonstop the next morning. First, my dad. "You didn't have to do this," he said, voice tight with forced calm. "We thought we were handling it the right way." Then my mom, she was crying. "We didn't want you to feel burdened by the property," she sobbed. "It was just a piece of paper. We didn't think you'd care that much." A piece of paper? My identity? My childhood? My rights? Reduced to paperwork they felt entitled to ignore. Then came Lindsay. She called me from some overpriced hotel in Spain. "Why are you trying to ruin this for me?" she whined. "It's not like you were going to live there. You live in a shoebox apartment and act like you're better than everyone." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so predictably selfish. They started offering things. My dad said they'd cut me a check for my share. My mom promised we could all sit down and talk like a family. Even Lindsay offered to skip part of her trip if it made me feel better. But it wasn't about the money. It never was. They wanted forgiveness without accountability, closure without consequence. But I wasn't the scared kid in the attic anymore. I had leverage. And for the first time in my life, I had options. The power had shifted, and I could see in their voices. They were terrified of what I'd do next. I thought I had time. I thought the legal process would stall them long enough to force accountability. But I was wrong. Despite the inquiry, despite the will, they pushed the sale through. My lawyer called me a few days later with the news. The house was officially transferred. It was gone. I remember just sitting on my kitchen floor, staring at the cracked tile under the sink. My heart wasn't beating, it was dragging. All the work, all the documents, all the memories, erased with a signature. My childhood wasn't just sold, it was erased, papered over by people who were supposed to protect me. I asked how it happened. Turns out, my dad had used a power of attorney one I signed years ago when I was in college, helping him file some paperwork for the house. Back then, I didn't question it. I trusted him. I thought I was helping. And now that signature had been weaponized to sign me out of my own legacy. The lawyer's tone was careful. "It's legally murky, but hard to reverse. You could sue, but it'll cost you more than you'd get back." So that was it. Not only did they betray me, they used my trust against me. The same hands that taught me how to tie my shoes had signed away everything I ever loved, and they did it with the stroke of a pen I unknowingly gave them. I didn't answer any of their messages that week. I didn't go into work. I didn't even turn on the lights in my apartment. I just sat there in the dark, surrounded by silence. No tree house, no porch, no place to go home to. That was the lowest I've ever been. And in that rock-bottom silence, I realized something chilling. They had already decided who mattered in this family, and I was never part of that equation. I didn't scream. I didn't send angry texts. I didn't beg for anything back. I went silent. I deleted the family group chat, blocked their numbers, turned off message requests from Lindsay's friends who started sending me. "You're being dramatic, Dimiz." I scrubbed them from my life like they had scrubbed me from the deed. No more explanations. No more second chances. I was done playing the son who stayed quiet for the sake of peace. At first, I think they thought I'd cool off. My mom left voicemails every few days, her voice drenched in guilt-laced sweetness. "We miss you, honey. Please don't let a house come between us." As if it were just drywall and bricks. As if it wasn't the last piece of a version of my life they'd already burned to the ground. Then came the emails. My dad tried a more practical approach. There's still time to move forward as a family. We didn't mean to hurt you." He even attached a PDF of a fake apology letter Lindsay had written, probably in 10 minutes between spa appointments. But I didn't respond. I couldn't, because every time I even considered picking up the phone, I remembered that night at the dinner table how they had all smiled at me while already planning to take what wasn't theirs, and then came the real silence. No more calls, no more emails, just the emptiness they left behind. And weirdly, it started to feel ... freeing. The weight I'd carried all my life, the need to be the good son, the bigger person, the peacemaker, started to dissolve. And in that silence, something unexpected happened. I stopped feeling guilty, and they started feeling the consequences of being ignored. They say karma takes its time, but sometimes it just waits for you to get out of the way. About a month after I cut contact, I got a message from an unknown number. It was short, just one line: "They're falling apart without you." I didn't respond, but curiosity itched at me. So I checked Lindsay's Instagram. What once was a stream of glowing travel selfies had dried up. No more beach shots. No new country check-ins. Instead, a photo of her back home, slouched on a worn-out couch, captioned "Mental Reset." The comments were dry. No emojis, no fake POSITIVITY. Then the updates trickled in from mutuals I hadn't blocked. The buyer of the house had backed out last minute, something about disputed ownership, likely triggered by the inquiry my lawyer sent. The deal had already gone through, but now the money was locked in escrow. My parents had spent most of the advance. They were scrambling to cover fees. They tried selling Lindsay's car, then canceled her credit card. She posted a story throwing shade at toxic people who mess up your blessings. I didn't have to guess who she meant. The home they sold was now an albatross. Without the full sale, they couldn't move. Without my help tech stuff, legal advice, finances, they were lost. My dad apparently had to hire someone to fix the water heater because the son, who used to handle that sort of thing, doesn't speak to us anymore. Their golden child couldn't save them. She never had to. That was always my role. And now, with me gone, they had to face the reality they built without the crutch they took for granted. No big explosion, no revenge speech, just quiet collapse. And I wasn't there to catch the pieces this time. It came in the mail, tucked inside a plain white envelope with my name written in my mother's handwriting. No return address, no stamps of warmth or nostalgia. Just a letter I never expected and honestly never wanted. I almost threw it out, but curiosity is a powerful thing. So I sat at the edge of my bed, the afternoon sun pooling through the blinds, and opened it with careful fingers. Inside were 3 pages. The first was from my mom. The handwriting was shaky, like she wrote it through tears. She said they never meant to hurt me, that they did what they thought was best, that family shouldn't fall apart over property. She called the house a symbol, not a person. That told me everything. The second page was from my dad. Cold, calculated. He offered to talk things out like adults, said they had suffered enough and missed their son. Not once did he say the word sorry. The third page, that was Lindsay's, written in pink gel pen like a teenager's diary. She called me petty and said I was punishing everyone for being happy. She ended it with a single sentence that made my chest burn. "I always knew you'd leave us eventually." That was when I folded the pages, slipped them back into the envelope, and placed it in a drawer. Unopened letters, unanswered calls, that was the legacy they created. Not just losing me, but never even realizing why I didn't need to respond. My silence was the response. They thought I would scream, fight, beg for a place back at the table. Instead, I built my own table, and I learned how peaceful it is when no one's trying to flip it over. They took the house, but they didn't take me. That was the truth I had to work through in pieces, slowly, painfully. I spent months rebuilding my routines. Little things at first: cooking dinner with music playing, letting the sunlight hit my face on the balcony without rushing anywhere, buying a small bookshelf and filling it with stories that didn't come with guilt. And eventually, I started to feel like I belonged somewhere again. I signed a lease on a new apartment. Nothing fancy, just clean walls, good light, and a view that reminded me I was still standing. I painted the walls myself, even hung up an old photo of me and my grandfather in front of the treehouse. Not to dwell on the past, but to remember who I was before they broke my trust. Friends started coming around more, not out of pity, but respect. I told them pieces of the story, and every single one of them said the same thing. You did the right thing. Not everyone is brave enough to walk away from their own family. But I did, and I'm still here. The house was never the true loss, it was the betrayal that lived in its walls. I'll never get the old versions of them back, and maybe that's for the best. I no longer wait for their calls or wonder if they're sorry. I don't need their words to heal. Their absence gave me the room to grow into someone I never had permission to be before. I chose peace over performance. I chose silence over begging. I chose myself, and for the first time in my life, that finally felt like home.